So we'll get started and dive into some cybersecurity today. So Brian, we're good? You can hear me?
I can hear you, Amy.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Perfect. So thank you everyone for signing on. We really appreciate it. Taking time out of your day to listen to this very important topic. So I am Vice President of IT and Administration at NBM. We're an office technology company. We have a lot of current customers on here and some new customers too, potential customers, which is great. And so we have been in business for 38 years. We do everything related to office technology. So everything from IT to network services to cybersecurity to copiers, printers, wide format printers, phones, really anything that touches the office, we provide. And so we are just really excited to have Brian Pasquale here with us today. He's an expert in cybersecurity. He's a security solution specialist to small to mid-sized businesses. And this is the second webinar in our webinar series this year, NBM Tech Talk. So we're excited to have Brian here and are excited for him to kind of give us a state of the state on this, cybersecurity and the current climate, and let us all know what we can do to protect our businesses from this really hostile cybersecurity climate that we have right now. So I'm going to hand it over to him. I will follow up with all of you after with my contact information. And if you have any technology needs, please reach out. I run our IT division, so I support everything from IT support to cybersecurity to backup solutions, email security, everything touching your network. I can handle and help you with. So I will hand it over to Brian, and thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me, Amy. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Pasquale. I am a security solutions architect. I'm going to show you here my intro slide briefly to just give you a little bit of my background, but just to set expectations of this webinar, I'm going to go through just a handful of PowerPoint slides. We're going to talk about like Amy said, the current climate. What are the major threats really affecting small businesses right now? There's two in particular that really come to mind that are the most detrimental. And, we'll talk briefly about who is a target, as well as, what kind of technologies can we put in place to help not only detect those attacks, but in some cases prevent them or even remediate them. In the 11 years I've been in cybersecurity, I've always kind of went by the adage of prevention is ideal, but detection is a must. So, I mean, if you obviously want to stop everything, but no tools are ever going to stop everything, because the malicious actors are just too far ahead of the technology. And, but we can, if we can detect it, we can fix it, we can remediate it, and we can keep your business continuity flowing. And that's the main thing, because one of the biggest expenses when it comes to any kind of cybersecurity attack is the downtime, losing the productivity as well as reputation damage. So let's get started here. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. And then at the end of my PowerPoint, I'm actually going to walk you through a simulated attack that's going to really demonstrate the impact of what the two major threats I'm going to talk about today can have on your business, and how tools, there are certain tools out there from NBM that can clean those up. Okay, let me try and move my little bar here. Okay, just to confirm, Amy, if you want to give me a nod that you can see my screen, I'll go ahead and I'll start. Perfect, thank you. All right, so again, reintroducing myself. Let me lower my screen here. Brian Pasquale, Security Solutions Architect. Been in the business 11 years in InfoSec. I've got about 16 years of IT experience total. I started in the break-fix world as a contractor in my late 20s, and really just found my niche in security and just really stuck with it. I was in the MSSP space for a long time, so that's just strictly security services, provider. And I was in service delivery, so I worked with a lot of clients in many different verticals, anywhere from grocery chains, vitamin companies, food and beverage, medical, manufacturing. I mean, there was no limit to the type of clients that I inherited and had over that 9-year period of time. My specialties are SIM and endpoint detect and response. SIM stands for Security Information and Event Management. We're going to talk about those two as we go along today. Those are the two main products. We're going to talk about how they can help prevent these type of attacks, or at least detect them and help you solve them. So moving my window here. So let's talk about the Internet Crime Report. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but let's see what some of these complaints were, how much the losses were over the last 5 years. I mean, look at 2022, $10.3 billion in losses. And that's 800,000 complaints. I mean, it is getting expensive now to have a breach, to have internet crime and infosec crime happen to you. A lot of things I've heard over the years in my well over a decade's worth of experience is a lot of clients, potential clients and such, they think, well, I'm too small for that. I'm not a target. You're wrong. Everyone is a target. Okay, it does not matter how big or small you are. The small businesses are actually more at risk, because if they do get ransomed, that's their livelihood. Okay, that's the way they are, taking their kids, and that's the way they're paying for their kids' dance lessons and soccer games and football cleats, and that's what they do. And to get hit with a cyber attack could just totally cripple that. And sometimes businesses don't even recover. So as you can see, we have some verticals here that did get victimized. We are going to talk about ransomware a little bit later on, but you can see this is everything. And what you would think like defense would be a higher one. Nope, healthcare, public health, getting that information, stealing those files, selling those files on the dark web. That is basically that's the end game, right? Is to collect money and make money off of the money that's being collected. So let's talk about how these breaches occur. What is the root cause for some of these breaches? Why are people getting breached, or what is causing these attacks to happen? More times than not, compromised credentials are the way that people get in, that malicious actors will get into a system. We're going to talk about compromised credentials here in a little bit. That's actually part of my demonstration later. But giving up your password over email, a lot of these actually layer together. Phishing usually leads to compromised credentials, because the people on the other end of this phish email are giving up their passwords. In my experience, when I was in service delivery, I transferred a major state, like a legit state transportation department was my client, and they kept getting phished and giving up their payroll passwords. Payroll, PeopleSoft, like, you should never be giving up your payroll accounting software passwords. And they were, and paychecks for these transportation workers who are spending days on end working outside. Sorry, I thought I heard my connection drop. Working outside, they're losing their paychecks, Some other ones that you can see, there's, cloud misconfiguration. This is your Azure, your Microsoft Cloud, your OneDrives, your Amazon Web Services, Google Drive. These things, when you're implementing these things into businesses, if you don't have the right security controls in place, data can just be exfiltrated right out of there. Some other big ones here, vulnerability in third-party software. So let's put it this way. If a vendor that you're using, like Microsoft, Google, they issue Adobe, Java, they issue a patch, definitely apply that patch, because there's a reason they're doing it. A patch will be a software update. It's to prevent your software from being exploited, because if that software is vulnerable, it's just another way for an attacker to get in. And it's not a matter of if they can get in, it's when sometimes. Real high level on just so some of the top industries here, and how, what it's costing, measured in millions for a data breach. I mean, you see healthcare is high up there, but there's others too: retail, transportation, industrial, financial. I mean, everybody is a target, and it does cost millions and millions of dollars to recover. So the two major threats that I'm going to talk about today, that really are plaguing everyone out there. I mean, it has even made the executive branch of the White House even made a statement on it years ago, or a couple of years ago, I remember. Ransomware and business email compromise. Okay, so let's talk about that. Ransomware is when your files get in, you download a program, your files get encrypted, and then they demand money. Okay, so normally this happens with a phish. They get an email that looks legitimate, and that is important to make sure that if you get an email from somebody that is a known person, which is how these attackers do it, and you're uncertain of it, make sure you contact that person directly before you click on anything in that email. Okay, just a security tip for you there. So ransomware, the email comes in, the link gets clicked, the payload, which is what encrypts the files, gets executed. So then what happens is the malware starts running. There is a remote server somewhere out on the web that gets contacted with all the target information, and then the files get encrypted. At this point, the victim gets notified by the attacker, like, if you do not pay me X amount of money in Bitcoin, you're never going to get your files back. Okay, that's one major threat. The other one would be business email compromise. So you probably might have heard some of these stories about how people get emails from the CFO or the CEO, and they say, hey, and Amy, I'll use you as an example. Amy, I need you to send me $10,000 in, but I need them all broken up into $500 Walmart gift cards. That is a really abnormal request, right? But usually that's how it works, is people don't realize, because they see it's coming from the CFO, it's coming from the CEO, a major executive, and they don't want to get in trouble. So they do it. And that, costs businesses millions of dollars in the process. So giving you some ransomware statistics here, paying the ransom really only gets you some of your data. Let's talk about 61, this stat right here, 61% of encrypted data was restored on average after paying the ransom. So even if you pay, you're not getting all of your stuff back. Okay, and there are ways around it to not have to pay. So you're still losing money, you're paying the ransom, you've lost downtime, and now you have, when you think you're getting your money back, thieves aren't honest. There's a reason why they're thieves. So it's definitely not a recommended practice. That's why there are controls in place to restore encrypted data. Just some other, just some remediation costs here. So the average cost to remediate a ransomware attack is $1.4 million. Okay, now think about it this way: the average ransom payment, excluding some outliers, is $812,000. Now there have been some bigger ones, some bigger hospitals and such that paid millions, right? Let's look at it this way. There has been an instance where we, in a couple of years ago, we used this example on our webinar, and it was on a different webinar, sorry. And it was basically the attacker had a foothold in the environment, the target, the victim, for months. They had access to all of their passwords, all of their banking records, everything. So when they finally dropped the payload and ransomed the company, they said they wanted $100,000. The company said, I can only pay you 20. They remoted into the machine, logged into the accounting software, and says, actually, you can pay me $100,000, and showed them how much money they had while they're sitting there at the machine. So these people are smart, okay? They are smart. They know, and there's just ways to get around it and avoid it. One of those tools that gets used is EDR, or endpoint detection and response. So how does that work? Endpoint detection and response is going to monitor your endpoints. Now, this is going to cover your servers and your workstations, okay? That's what we mean by an endpoint. So it's going to monitor that endpoint activity using behavioral analysis, okay? So it uses a little bit of artificial intelligence there. It does machine learning, and it will, it looks for applications that are going to misbehave, okay? One of the examples is, let's say you have a spreadsheet, and you open that spreadsheet, and it has malicious script in it, right? Well, guess what? An antivirus software is not going to see that, because it's a normal spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is not known, itself is not known to be bad. It's the script hidden inside of it. Okay, this is what I mean when I say more advanced. All of those traditional antivirus tools that you're used to in the past, they get beat all the time. So easy to beat them. And you'll see why on the next slide. Why do you need an endpoint detect and response? Because you need that behavior-based monitoring of threats. It looks for things that are, the new terms now are fileless malware. Antivirus tools look for files. If there's no file, antivirus tool is not going to see it, but an EDR solution would. So it's also going to do real-time response and remediation. It will take action the minute that software starts to misbehave. The detect and response tool takes action and will stop the threat. In addition to that, there's many integrations with other security tools that we're going to talk about. Now, why isn't traditional antivirus good enough? Okay, you've heard me say if it's a traditional antivirus tool, get beat. Well, they all get beat. Okay, all of those original tools, especially the big popular ones, most attackers will test their malware against those more popular ones because there's so much distribution out there. So the Microsofts, the Symantec's, the McAfee's of the world that are, that are for, even home use and such, these are getting targeted all the time by malicious actors, okay? Because they are the standard. They're the gold standard. They're the ones that if they can keep their security, their malware is pretty good, right? So traditional AV, it's only looking for the stuff that it knows about. Virus definitions, updates, there's no data collection, and there's really no added features to it. So every time there's a new threat, for whatever reason, if that endpoint doesn't update its traditional antivirus database and that threat gets on there, it'll never see it. Never see it. You compare it to an EDR, it is going to detect the previously known, of course, but it's also going to detect the unknown threats due to the behavioral-based monitoring. It does have the complex and endpoint data collection. So it is going to collect the log data from, it's going to log activity data from your servers and workstations. And then there's other added features in there. I mean, you can do advanced reporting from an EDR. You can do threat hunting. There's just so much more that you can do with an EDR versus a traditional antivirus. The last piece of technology that we're going to talk about, and this is what we are, I spent a lot of time being a SIM engineer, so this is deeply passionate for me when I get to this type of technology, is SIM, okay? Endpoint detection and response, it's a great layer. It is necessary to protect those servers and workstations, okay? But how are you going to see the rest of the traffic? Earlier, I said prevention is ideal, but detection is a must, right? Well, a SIM is detection, detect and respond, or I'm sorry, observe and report. You need that SIM to be that security system to monitor the whole network in addition to the endpoints. Think about those commercials you see for those big physical home security systems, right? And you have they show all the people sitting at workstations looking at these computers and watching all these homes and cameras and everything whenever there's a break-in. Think of that for your network, okay? So the SIM, the acronym, it stands for Security Information and Event Management. How does it work? Easy. It collects log data and event data from all of your systems and devices. So think of your servers, your workstations, your firewalls, your routers, your switches, your security tools, your even application software, okay? Your cloud SaaS tools like Office 365, G Suite. You bring all that stuff in to a SIM. Okay, you basically concatenate all that data into one location. All right, that's part one. Gives you that visibility, that single view. Okay, having all of your log data in one space. Why is it important to do that? Well, a forensic investigator or attacker, or even or a security professional or IT person, if they have to investigate a root cause and you don't have a tool like this, the time it's going to take them is exponential, because they have to, one, jump to all the devices that were affected by a cyber attack. And two, some of those devices like firewalls and switches, their memory is not that large. So being able to go back 4 hours sometimes with some of those vendor types or manufacturers is difficult, let alone 4 days or 4 months when you're doing a security investigation. So when you have a SIM and you have log retention and everything is all in one location, you are giving that security professional the tools they need. Now, how does it identify a threat? There's quite a few ways out there. The most common way is a set of predetermined rules. Okay, so most SIM providers have engineers taking in log data, creating log triggers, as we call them. So when that log gets detected, especially if there's a security operations center monitoring this instance here, a team of experts, just like that commercial I mentioned, a team of security experts watching your data, okay? Those rules, those triggers generate, the security operations center personnel would jump into that alert, review the data, make the determination, is this a threat? Is this not a threat? Did this actually happen? And then they will notify, the stakeholder, whoever is on the receiving end of the data, or the data being protected. Now, what other reasons would you need a SIM aside from everything I just mentioned? Well, there are governance compliancy bodies out there, things like PCI, HIPAA, CMMC, where criteria needs to be met. Okay, PCI, payment card information. That's one of the more common ones. Now, those things. Every PCI audit I've ever participated in the last decade, they always want logs. They want logs. They want logs from a year ago, from 6 months ago, from 3 months ago. They need to prove that to pass the audit. Okay, so yeah, there is a compliance and auditing requirement in most cases to have a SIM. Two, we're going back to that full visibility detection, right? Having everything in that network in one location so that your SOC analysts, your engineers, your security personnel, they can go in and do that proper investigation and have all the tools you need. Some common, and I want to point out, when it comes to a SIM, though, I'm going to say there are some pain points. Many years I've worked with this tool, and I want to put these pain points out there. When you use a SIM, you have to give it everything. You have to give it as many logs as you can. If you do not, I've heard this way too many times, you're just not going to see the value. Because a lot of times, whenever I was assigned new clients in my past life, they were only sending just a small portion of their network. And the big picture is being missed. You're getting a fraction, and then the rest of it is just, that's where all the attacks are happening, and we're only seeing a small piece. So to truly get value out of a SIM, you really have to trust it. You have to log the data to it. Having all your data in one place, it would decrease that time it takes for an analyst to identify that threat. And then, of course, in any kind of a major security breach, let's hope that doesn't happen. But those major security breaches, like the ones you see on the news, like let's go back to Target, right? Target was years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point. You have to be able to do that forensic analysis and have that data. All right, well, it is simulation time, but Amy, I'm going to pause for a second and see if you had any questions, if there's any Q&A or anything coming from the audience.
Yeah, the only thing I would note, just about you mentioning Target, so that breach originated from a small HVAC vendor with 10 employees. So that vendor kept an Excel spreadsheet of Wi-Fi passwords for all the Target locations, and they were hacked. And that's how Target was hacked. So, as small businesses on this call, you think, why are hackers actually interested in my data? Well, that's why, so they can get to the bigger fish. And also it's not just about the value of your data, but it's about the value of downtime. So they know the more downtime you have, the longer you can't invoice, the longer you can't dispatch technicians, the longer you can't bill customers, the more, eager you're going to be to pay a ransom to get your systems back. So I'm glad you mentioned the Target, because I mentioned that a lot in my cybersecurity trainings, because it's, that's why small businesses are targeted.
It's even made it into pop culture, the vector using a Raspberry Pi on a connected thermostat.
Right.
Weak security on a connected thermostat. So yeah, it's made it into popular culture too.
Yeah, so why don't you go through the simulated attack, Brian, Perfect. And then we'll open up to questions after that.
Okay. Okay, great. So just to set the stage for the audience here, I'm going to show a simulated attack that both includes business email compromise and a little bit of business email compromise, more phishing than that. So we talked about phishing. Phishing emails, they look really good. Okay, these malicious actors, they look really good. They will take logos of your banks, your TV providers, I mean, I've even seen a phishing email with something, having a daughter myself. I'll say a Claire's Boutique. I've seen a Claire's Boutique email come across, saying, hey, click here, and it's been fake. So it doesn't matter. They will find a way. I mean, and it's easy to craft phishing emails because, there's so much out there on the internet that is available just for use. LinkedIn, look at things like LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, this is how the malicious actors, they do their recon. They do the reconnaissance on all the public data out there on all of us. And then they target us. They find the right targets, and then they attack. So let's talk about we're going to go through this simulated attack here. And this is essentially that the scenario is the user is going to be traveling to Europe. And in their research and doing some currency conversion software, they come across a site and they download they sign up to receive a currency converter, and then we'll go from there as to what happens. So I don't want to spoil it for everyone. All right. Amy, can you confirm you can see that?
Yeah, I can see. You just might want to make it a bigger.
Yes, I'm going to do that now.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning, and I'm going to mute here because I'm going to talk over my coworker. Technical difficulties. Hold on. It wouldn't be a live webinar if we didn't have I'll pause my share, and we're going to do a quick refresh of my browser here. There we go. Now we're back. Okay, so we are going to talk about this. We're going to do a live malware and business email compromise demo. I'm going to walk through this, and again, the stage has been set to where the person is traveling out of the country, and they need to convert their money, right? So they do some research here. They come across a website, and this website allows them to sign up for a currency converter. Okay, so as we get to that, I'm going to advance the video 10 seconds here. So from here, you sign up. I'm going to pause and then continue. So from here, you can see we signed up for our currency converter, and then you have an email, right? So you get an email from the site, and you can see this is being sent to Dustin here. Dustin is going on vacation. He's going to Europe. He sends the request, and hey, Patrick, I shared a file with you. Okay, so now this is euro to US dollars. Then this basically is only going to work for Dustin. So now Dustin's going to click on link. Okay, he's going to click, and now it's going to take him to his Microsoft login page. Okay, so from here, and I don't know if you can see it, but this does not look like a Microsoft page, does it, up here in the link? That's something to consider. So Dustin enters his credentials, and nothing happens. And so that's a huge red flag. But hey, now he's got the spreadsheet. So pretty odd, right? So now we're going to open this spreadsheet here. And you can see, there's some macros in here, and it has an update currency button, and you see nothing really happens, right? So like most people, they're going to, macros are disabled in most security policies, but in this case here, we're going to allow the updating, and now you can see, look, currency actually converted, okay? Now, not every malicious spreadsheet is going to have this start attack button, okay? Let's just put that elephant out there right now. That's not going to happen all the time. In this case, this script would be tied to this specific macro. So we are going to simulate the attack, but let's do a little hygiene check on our endpoint first. So we're looking, this is the task scheduler. So you can see all these normal tasks. Google, OneDrive, SentinelOne. SentinelOne is the EDR solution that's actually on this tool right now. And then we're going to just do a quick ping out to Google to show this machine, and we're going to check and see that this machine is online. Okay, so now you can see we're getting responses. We just ran a ping, pretty common way to check your connection to make sure that you're up and running. So now at this point, we hit we're going to start the attack. Okay, this would be tied into the currency macro, but for the purpose of this demo, we made it pretty obvious. So now you can see my spreadsheet disappeared. And at this point, now the spreadsheet is misbehaving. It is running task scheduler. So that program we just opened, and now you can see that the threat was detected by the DR solution, okay? So now task scheduler just ran, and spreadsheets should not be doing that, okay? That is not the way a spreadsheet behaves. It runs a batch file, and it just created this scheduled task called really evil. So let's pause and talk about that. This is the instance of behavioral monitoring, okay? This is where the tool would, in this instance, in this demonstration, everything is set to allow everything to happen, of course, because it wouldn't be much of a demonstration if we stopped it right away. But we are, this point here, this is not normal behavior. And the tool, an EDR tool that does behavioral-based monitoring, would catch this right away and stop it. Okay, it would stop it immediately and have that real-time response. So let's go through now. So now you can see some more commands open. So let's go into the console here. Okay, now let's say from a perspective of a SOC analyst, if you were utilizing a security operations center like services like NBM has, you're going to see, okay, this is what our analysts are going to do. They're going to see this euro to US dollar file. We're going to click into the file, and here I'm going to pause again. So from here, pretty straightforward what you're looking at, okay? You can see this was the file that ran, this was the desktop that ran, it originated from this program. Here's the big one though, dynamic detection. This would not be detected by a tool like a regular AV because it was not a known malicious file, okay? So we have this dynamic detection, and you can see this specific tool is using some indicators here, some behavioral indicators that will actually label or classify malicious programs. So right now it is currently classified as malware based on the data that we have, based on the behavior. So as we continue, you can see that we're going to go into the actual Explore here, the Explore tab. So right now, we're highlighting again behavioral threat indicators. Okay, so this is actually what tells the application what the malware is. Pause for a coffee here. So when you look at some of these indicators, why is the spreadsheet becoming persistent? Why is it becoming persistent with auto run tasks, right? These are things to think about. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. Now you can see we opened the Office file. Okay, this was that currency converter. We ran a batch file, this .bat. This batch is just basically a file that runs a bunch of other programs. Okay, that's all a batch file is. It is just a batch of files that all run together. So as it ran, you can see it opened up all these other files. It opened up Microsoft PowerShell. It opened up the task scheduler, the registry editor. The registry is the nervous system of the Windows operating system. And you can see we created 213 events just from clicking that one button, okay? So a SOC analyst is going to do their due diligence here and look at these, based on experience and reputation checks and everything. They're going to look at these IP addresses here, these targets from your endpoint, and they're going to discover that these are known ransomware hosts. These are known malware hosts. So from here, we're going to, a SOC analyst is going to disconnect this machine from the network, okay? They're going to take it offline for a couple of reasons. And I'm going to pause so I can explain why. So they're going to take it offline because we don't want the ransomware spreading to another endpoint, okay? So that's the main thing, is we don't want it spreading to another endpoint. We don't want it infecting more machines on the network. When an analyst sees something like this happening and is spreading so rapidly and so fast on an endpoint, we're going to stop it, okay? We're going to isolate that machine. That's incident response 101. We isolate that machine, keep, it's, I believe in true incident response terms, if you've ever gone through any kind of security training, it's going to say stop the bleeding, right? Kind of a harsh expression, but it's true. So we're going to isolate this machine and prevent it from touching anything else. Now, from here, I believe we're going to go back into our endpoint. So now you can see a little bit different things have happened. So now all this red here, this is bad. Okay, these are all programs that are running, PowerShell scripts that are running in the background. You can even see the malware has made changes. This was not my background on this machine, right? So let's keep going. Now we're going to bring up the task scheduler here in just a moment. Now I want to show these tasks that have been brought up, okay? So the tasks, one of the things that was basically we established persistence, right? So now when we refresh our task scheduler, and you see we've got new tasks in here. You remember the original one? Again, true malware is not going to say evil. It's not going to tell you it's evil. Chances are if you don't know what you're looking for, you won't even notice it's there. That's how advanced a lot of these attackers are. So you can see we have evil task and really evil. So what do these tasks do, right? This is what's called establishing persistence. So on a normal antivirus tool, okay, if you found this spreadsheet, the antivirus tool, you could quarantine it and then delete the spreadsheet, right? Guess what? This task in here you're looking at, it's going to run that same application that ran when you click the spreadsheet, when you click the macro. So every hour or every reboot, it's going to download this malware again and just continue to reinfect the machine, okay? That is major, because now you have no choice but to be down to allow, if you don't have a tool like we're demonstrating here, you have no choice but to be down to allow somebody to, the only way to really get that stuff out of there is to erase the machine. Well, back up your data first, of course, erase the machine and then restore it. And that could take anywhere between 4 hours. If you have disk encryption, that could take 2 days. So downtime, again, business continuity is getting disrupted with this kind of a threat, okay? As we let the demo play through, you're going to see, we're pointing out the evil tasks. It's going to repeat every hour. It's going to repeat at every startup. Let's look at some of the other changes here. So now we're going to check and make sure that we're on, the disconnect actually works. So we're going to ping Google and you can see, hey, general failure, right? So we successfully isolated this machine, okay? And you check, yeah, we're pinging Google by their name, by the name and then by the IP address, the 8.8s, okay? So now we know this machine's offline. So the only way to access this machine is through the EDR tool at this point. We've isolated it to the point where the EDR solution will handle or will keep it isolated. So now let's go back into the threat, okay? So from here, you can see this is the damage has been done, but let's clean it up now, right? Now I'm talking a lot. This doesn't normally take this long, but we're gonna do some actions here. So let's talk about these actions. Our SOC team, the default is always going to be the kill and quarantine, okay? So we're going to stop all those processes related to that threat. If you remember on the previous screen, there were about, 200 processes that were created by this malware that are all running in the background. Well, the kill is going to stop all those processes from running, okay? And we're going to quarantine the malicious file, the spreadsheet itself. It's going to get encrypted and it's going to get quarantined. It gets encrypted because there's malware that exists in the world that it will unquarantine a quarantine for a traditional antivirus, okay? Then we're going to remediate it. So all those changes we made, right? All those changes that were made, all those tasks, the persistence and everything, that is going to get removed. This is where a technician, if they didn't have a tool like this at their disposal, or if you weren't using an organization that provides you with SOC services, this would take hours. This is where your continuity dies. This is where money gets lost, because not only are you spending money on a tech, but you're also losing the productivity of that employee whose machine has been affected. Yeah, of course, you can give them a loaner. I've dealt with that in the break fix world. But again, some end users are quirky. They don't like loaners. So, they want their machine. It's not their machine. So this remediate here is going to keep, it's going to clean up, get rid of all that extra garbage. And then let's say the files were encrypted, right? Now we can roll everything back. Rollback is going to restore, it's going to restore the previous versions of those encrypted files. So the remediate is going to delete all the files that were encrypted, and then the rollback is going to use its technology to come back and bring all of those files back, okay, the previous versions of them. So it doesn't decrypt them because we don't have the decryption key, but it will, if by using this tool, we'll be able to bring back the original versions. So at this point here, our SOC analyst is going to mark this as true positive and apply the changes. Now, from here, you can see this might take 30 seconds to a minute. You're going to see it's going to walk through its processes. And from here, even in this specific tool, you can even download reports to see what processes were killed, what were quarantined, what was remediated and rolled back. Okay, so you have all that at your fingertips. So from this standpoint, this machine has been cleaned. Okay, it is back to normal. We're going to reconnect it here to the network shortly. And from here, the end user is back online. Now, I'm going to allow the recording to catch up to my talking here. So we're going to go back and check the endpoint. Amy, are we good on time?
Yep. So far,
Okay.
maybe a couple more minutes on this and then, yep.
Okay. That's that's all I have. So now we're going to do a refresh here, and you can see all of our tasks that are gone, or all those tasks that were created are now gone. Okay, so now we're back to normal. Google, OneDrive. We can close that. You can see that file, the ransomware file, the spreadsheet is gone. And we can also, do a run a ping here, and you can see our desktop background returned to normal. So we brought back the system state. We're going to ping Google, and now you can see that we're back online. So this is how you protect, this is bringing that endpoint back. So that took about 6-7 minutes, right? But we forgot about something. Remember, we logged into Microsoft. Well, we thought we logged into Microsoft. So from here, I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. So from here, with that business email compromise, now we're starting to get alerts from the SIM. Okay. So from here, we get a SIM alert basically saying risky sign in. Right. So now, okay, well, hey, I logged in when I got that Microsoft prompt. Okay. But now we're getting, this is looking at the rest of it. So you're not going to see, this is an Office 365 alert. You're not going to see this in an EDR solution. So this is where you add on that extra layer. This is the SIM, the security information and event management. So now there are rules and triggers set up to detect, this type of activity. So, hey, why did I get a risky sign on? What's going on here? So from here, the analyst is going to go and you can see, okay, well, hey, this was Dustin. We have a risky sign on. So now we're going to go out and we're going to look at the log data behind this sign on. So now you can see, okay, yeah, this is pretty normal. Dustin signed in from the US. Okay, yeah, so pretty normal. But hey, Dustin didn't travel to China, didn't travel to Nigeria, he didn't travel to France or Brazil. So that screen in the very beginning of this call where we logged into Microsoft and nothing happened, well, now your credentials have been compromised and you are getting logins from all over the world, okay? This was likely not Dustin. So from here, now, this is where the SOC analysts can really take hold and start to do some investigation. So you can see the raw data here. Hey, this was Dustin's email address. This was an Office 365 log. They're going to go out to the dashboard. Now look at this. See, a SIM, the big thing with a SIM solution is the reporting, being able to showcase that data. It's more than just notifying a team of experts to handle it. We have to be able to show what the tools are doing. So if you look at this, we go into our Office 365 dashboard, and yeah, Dustin, I know Dustin personally. He's in Wyoming, so this is pretty normal here at the Central Estate, but I know he's not in Brazil. He's not in Nigeria. He's not in Germany, he's not in India, he's not in China. So you can see like all these logins from all over. So the big thing is that visibility, having that identification, having being able to identify those threats and being able to take action on them. So at this point here, the SOC team is going to notify, NBM. They're going to say, hey, look, we detected some risky sign-ons for Dustin's account. We believe his account's been compromised. And here's the report. Here's where, give them that notification, give Amy that notification here. This is everything you can do to help remediate that threat. All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of my demonstration here of my simulated attack. I'd like to go ahead and pause and hand this back to Amy here and see if we have some questions from the group or we
Yeah, so Brian, thank you for going over that. So can you tell us what would have happened if someone had a traditional antivirus on their computer in that situation?
So that's a good question, Amy. So what would have happened is that machine would have been taken over completely. The end user would not have been able to access any of their files because they would have been encrypted. And if they ran a manual scan and deleted that file, or even if they just went in and manually deleted that file that was causing the problems, as soon as they reboot their machine, it's just going to keep getting reinfected. So it's just going to keep them from being able to do their tasks.
Right. So it would lock all their systems. They wouldn't be able to invoice. They would not be able to, service their customers. It essentially would you say they'd be dead in the water?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting to see when you do it live, and to see exactly what happens and how the process goes. And even though you used an email that someone solicited, through currency, it really can be any email that comes through. So it can be an email that you get that might be seemingly from a current customer and someone copy and pasted their signature, right? I mean, it could be any email could be from someone that you're expecting. So you always, want to confirm and make sure you're verifying anytime you click on something.
I get personal emails from my cousin all the time asking me to send him money to some Chinese bank account.
Yeah. So I think we have a question here from someone, as small companies, what are you seeing for ransomware payments to hackers? Is there any difference for small companies, or are you seeing, substantially large sums for small companies as well?
The average payout for the smaller businesses, and that one statistic slide I showed was about 10,000, is usually where they land.
Mm-hmm. And
but it can be more. I mean, it really can be more. I mean, go back to the story I told where the attacker had a foothold in the environment, and they just logged into the accounting software and said, actually, you have $100,000 you can pay us. But in most cases, the average is about 10,000.
And so something that I hear a lot from customers, and I'd love you to talk about it, is, if someone is paying cyber insurance, so actually paying, has a policy, thinks they're covered, they might say, why do I need this kind of solution? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's a good question as well. Cyber insurance does come up with a lot of partners that I talk to. And the thing is a lot of those policy requirements do ask that you have an endpoint detection and response tool in place. They don't like the traditional antivirus tools because ransomware is not a traditional virus. Okay. And if you look at those policy guidelines, even with payouts, there's usually really strict criteria to pay that rent, to pay that guarantee, okay, to pay out your claim. It's just something to consider. It's better to have more control with something like an EDR solution backed by a SOC team that can restore your data quickly without having to rely on an insurance payout for losses, or rely on backups, or rely on just, paying. As you can see, paying is unreliable. Paying is not going to get you all your data back.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our experience, we've seen cyber policies actually voided when they don't have certain things in effect, like MFA or, multi-factor authentication, which I know you didn't really touch on, but, at least we've seen that happen to a couple of companies. And also keep in mind your cyber insurance limits for ransomware might not be enough to cover whatever the payment is, even if it's not voided. So we've seen that happen too before.
Something else to consider about ransomware, the ransomware clauses in cyber insurance, is that they're very strict. So they don't like paying them out. The insurance companies don't like paying out those claims. And they make it so by all the language they use in the clauses, in the requirements.
All right, I think that's all the questions I see, and it's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to add, Brian?
Well, I'll just add, I want to say thank everybody for attending the major closing remark here, but just to comment on your multi-factor authentication item there, that is part of a security layer. right? So just my closing thoughts in that, with that in mind, there's not one single tool that is going to solve all of your security problems. So you can't just put an EDR in place and expect that to solve your problems. You can't just put a SIM in place. You have to have the layers, and all of those things do fall into layers. Multi-factor authentication, that's a big one. That's signing in and guarantee, multi-factor means it's either something, it's one of three things: something you know, something you are, or something you have. Okay. Something you know is a password, right? So anybody can get your password and log in, but then you have to have that, at least if you're going with two-factor, it's either something you are, which is a biometric, or something you have, which is a token. Okay, so there's ways to keep that. So that is one layer. That's authenticating. That's validating who you are to access those systems. And then you add all those additional layers. You add the endpoint detect and response for your endpoints. You add the SIM monitoring for your the rest of your network traffic. You add controls in, which some SIMs include, like the one that I showed, they include an intrusion detection system. So looking for different threat attacks that are coming in. Then you add the human element to it. You add that SOC layer to it. So the SOC team is there 24/7. Okay. So think about it this way. Last thought, somebody's hiding in your attic, right? They're wearing camouflage. It's dark. You can't see them, right? But a SOC team, it would be like somebody for a SOC team to identify a threat like that. Think of it this way. They're seeing that camouflage guy up against a pink wall. Okay. Not very camouflaged anymore, is he? There is that threat. So having that layer on top of everything else is critical.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so, here at NBM, so Brian is part of our the cybersecurity team that supports our customers in the Security Operations Center and the SOC. So he's seeing these threats with his team on a regular basis, and that's really important when you're choosing a solution, because you want someone who's familiar with the different threats coming through, and so our cybersecurity team is. So we're always emphasizing a layered approach. So anytime you come on as an NBM IT customer or a cybersecurity customer, we're going to be looking at the layers, so that we are layering external threats with internal threats, and we're doing it through lots of different vectors. So we're looking at email security, and so we're putting security tools on your email through anti-phishing and spam filtering and 365 monitoring, so that we can actually detect logins like you saw on the map there across the world. We're doing it through device protection, which is what we talked about today. So that's the endpoint response solution, the endpoint detection response solution. And so that's, monitoring your devices 24/7 through our SOC for suspicious activity. And those are things that traditional antivirus is not going to catch. And then also layering that with the SIM, like we talked about. So if you have the budget, and it's required for highly regulated industries, but we're seeing a lot of companies do it now anyways, because it's become way more affordable for small to mid-sized businesses. So I can talk to you about that. So we're doing it in that way. And then of course through IT support. So, we're constantly giving support, both remote and on-site, to make sure that you're protected, and also looking at your network infrastructure to make sure you have appropriate firewalls and things like that. So I'm happy to do an assessment for anyone on this call from a cybersecurity perspective, and kind of, let you know where you stand, and see, let you know ways we can help. And, from there, I think we'll close it and follow up with me. Let's see, I think I might have another question. Let's see. Yes, there is a recording of the session available, and I can email it out after for anyone who's interested. So I appreciate everyone's time today, Brian. I really appreciate you signing on with us. Thank you. I know you do a lot of these, and we appreciate you talking to our customers. And I learned something too, which I always like. So thank you, and we'll hope to do one of these again.
I'll be happy to assist.
Thank you. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you for your time.